fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender.
The constitutional point of view was critical for Jefferson's support of the Bill of Rights.
As we mourn the loss of thousands of our citizens, I can hear you!
Is time running out?
It's Saturday. Welcome to the Hayden Collins radio program, The Intelligence Syndicate. In the 80s, they used to have radio guys, they called them pukers. And oh, welcome back to the... Yeah, I just sounded like that and I hate it. Oh, goodness. 75th anniversary of D-Day. Some of our soldiers are over there doing the reenactment, which was pretty cool. They're going to bring back great pictures, I am sure. We're going to have plenty of slideshows to look at. One of the other things that was going on, we actually got to hit parts of England. I found myself in parts of California. My buddies found themselves in parts of England. I think they got the better end of the deal. However, here's a segue for you. A big segue. The Royal British Academy of Yakety Schmackety blah 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 and medical and all the rest of them are shooting warning signs. People are waiting 8 months to a year for surgical procedures. Some of them are not even getting the surgical procedures. Other individuals who have exceeded their limits or exceeded their realm of, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, care. And understand I'm being kind of facetious here when I say care, have found themselves in a less than desirable position right now because England is getting to the point where they can't afford what they promised. This healthcare program they initiated, the healthcare program they're running, is costing them so much money that it's failing. And not only is it failing, it's failing really bad. Things are falling to the wayside. Individuals are not being treated. It's just not a good scenario all the way around. Now, if you ever tune into the Prime Minister's questions, there's going to be a new Prime Minister this next time around after Trump's visit to England. And it all surrounds Brexit. But I had some conversations, just so you guys can get an idea here. England is about 1/3 the size of Texas, just to put that in your mind's eye. And for me to have 4 friends in an area overseas like that in England that's, that size is kind of neat. But we're having a healthy conversation about the Queen's involvement in this Brexit. And one of the more conservative individuals enlightened me on something with the Queen. The Queen is the Queen, and she's, there are rules and things that take place and things that happen, but I was not aware of this. If the Queen so desires to take over where Parliament has failed, nothing shall stop her. And if she makes a decision for the subjects on behalf of the Crown, because Parliament was not able to, let's say, get her done, well, guess what? The Queen can do it. So, all of a sudden, new Prime Minister in England, all of a sudden the woes of the medical program over there are starting to surface. And this is, of course, after Finland collapsed from their medical programs they could no longer provide. And now we have the Queen looking at Brexit and looking at her funds and looking at how the kingdom is doing. I would dare lay odds, and I was pretty good last week. I called it out. I called it out on the show, it was so good. But I would dare lay odds that the Queen is going to do something not so historical but do something within the realm of her activities and impose upon herself to disincline the Parliament of their argument, force a decision, and rectify this egregious oversight to move on to something different and allow them to concentrate on taking care of her subjects as she handles Brexit herself. 3-1 odds. That's what I give that one. 3-1 odds. Anyway, the president went over. Everybody got to see it. Grand old time. It was really, really neat. The First Lady shined. Holy moly, did the First Lady shine. The president's comments about D-Day, rock and roll. Rock and roll. It was good to be on duty this weekend. And it was good to be with heroes this weekend. I serve with heroes. I'm not one, but I serve with heroes. It's good to be with them. All right, so I told you guys last week in the show, I said, hey, look at this. There's going to be a game afoot. And the game is going to be, you know, the guys in Venezuela are probably going to get pulled back because of the threat in Iran. And all of a sudden, the guys in Venezuela got pulled back, and the threat in Iran kind of goes back and forth. A little game of chess. So I expect another little game of chess this week. And keep in mind, diversions are for a reason. Diversions are for a reason. Write that down. That is a strategic part of any negotiation, of any, I don't know, worldly positioning. Ding. Oh, there we go. I think that any of the diplomacy that is taking place, and understand diplomacy has a lot of players in it. The players often change positions, maybe not fast, sometimes slow, but they often change positions. But diplomacy, as it is a very dangerous game at very high stakes that there is no forgiveness. So now, the diplomacy of Iran and Venezuela appears to be moving in the direction that would support the United States. One would have to consider, if it was moving in the opposite direction, how things would look today. For example, a big economic move, an indicator, outside of the economy, was what China's doing to try to beat the tariffs inside the United States. Now, there's going to be an argument out there for individuals who are going to say, oh, tariffs are just passed on to the end consumer. And that is a true statement. Understand, that is a true statement. But what tariffs do is I have to explain this in proper way to an 8th grader, because I had some of my students, and when I explained this to the 8th grader, they got it. So work with me here. If the labor force in the United States is paid $1 an hour, and the labor force overseas is paid 50 cents an hour, you're not going to be able to compete, and all of the overseas goods are going to be flooded into the United States, and you're going to be unemployed. Because you can't make anything, you can't compete unless you're willing to go 50 cents an hour. Okay? Now, I'm exaggerating those numbers to make a point. Just to make a point. So, for the longest time, China's kind of been re-engineering our stuff. That's a polite way of saying stealing. Re-engineering our stuff, creating their own stuff, you know, up and down. And you get some good products, you get some bad products. Things happen. And now it's to the point to where, okay, we want our manufacturing jobs back, and we want our jobs back inside the United States because we're tired of giving away jobs around the world and sitting around on welfare. So, see, here's what happens. They implied a tariff on China, and the tariff on China didn't immediately do too much damage, but they are protesting in the streets of China now, especially Hong Kong, because now it's impacting their economy, saying, okay, we aren't selling all these cheap goods to the Americans anymore. The Americans are not buying our goods because guess what's happening in the United States? it has now become cost effective for people to start their own businesses and go into manufacturing to make the stuff that China was making, because let's say the playing field just got balanced. Because the tariffs are requiring China to raise their cost inside the United States in order to pay the tax. And consumers don't want to pay that tax, so now the cheaper product is the product that's made inside the USA. Now that's the simplest explanation right there. Now that's kind of how tariffs work. In some cases they'll say it protects the American manufacturing industry. Other cases they say it creates a false ceiling. It all is developed on timing. That's why it's something that has to be moderated. You don't just set a tariff for life. You have to bring it up, bring it down. It's like your thermostat in your house. There are conditions where you'll lower it. There are conditions where you'll raise it. There are treaties involved. There is diplomacy involved. So keep that in mind. So don't get wrapped around the axle on all these tariffs. But let's talk about a tariff and show you the immediate result of a tariff. President Trump launched a diplomacy torpedo at Mexico. Mexico went to general quarters and came up to negotiate immediately. And believe it or not, and here's what the deal was. The president was very clear. You're the state between all of these individuals coming in seeking asylum, and international law says the first country they come to, they got to seek asylum, and you're not playing the game well. So until you start playing the game, we're going to raise the tariff 5% in increments just because we can. Now, a 5% increase in tariff will destroy Mexico. It will destroy Mexico, and they know it. So guess what happened? President Trump activated the Mexican army. And I've worked with the Mexican army before. They're good men and women. Very good men and women. Dedicated professionals. And believe me, we've seen bullets fly together. Good people. Very good people. All of a sudden Mexico found its army. And see, the unique thing is Mexico only has to guard 150 miles of land border at their southern border. Well, we've got some 2,000 some odd miles to guard. So they kind of laid down the law and said, all right, either you're going to step up to the plate and start playing the game, or we're just going to tariff you out of business. How do you want to play? 72 hours later, the Mexican army is on the move. Mexican army is not only on the move, they are busing people from the border back down to their southern border and either telling them to claim asylum or get out. All of the sudden, because of a threat of a tariff, a humanitarian issue is now being handled by another country instead of CNN. Because it's not a border issue. They're calling it a humanitarian issue. Oh, and I love this. I got to tell you guys this one. Two things. I read local papers when I'm out in California. And it was, what was it? Berkeley paper was one of them. The other one was just a local student paper, I guess. And the local student paper, I guess the title of the article was "We're going to run out of months." Or, because, this month is cherry month, and next month is strawberry month, and next month is banana month, and the month after that, whatever, okay? So the idea the student had, which I love, by the way, is they're just going to have 1 month a year. And they're going to make it February. And whatever your minority is, Black History Month, Gay Lesbian Month, Purple Hair Month, whatever month you want to do, February is dedicated to it. You can't have any other months. So month after month after month, we're not inundated with whatever political issue is out there or supported by somebody who wants to, create a month that everybody has to celebrate, yada, yada, yada. And he called it Minority Month. So February is going to be Minority Month. And I'm going, wow, this is such a liberal campus. Such a liberal area I'm in. And these guys came up with this? It's shocking. So that was one of the articles. The second one that really took my interest, and these are students writing this, of course, and I deal with a lot of students. Is the second one that really took my interest was the article that was imposed on Border Patrol from the view of a student. And apparently this student does nothing but watch MSNBC or CNN. Because according to the student's paper, all border agents do nothing but run around and rape people all day long. I don't know where they get the strength. But not only do that, they immediately break up families, and doing DNA testing to ensure that family members are actually family members is illegal, and yada yada yada, and blah 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 blah, on and on and on and on and on. And I read this entire article because it's always wise to know what your opponents think, or you know what the radical opinion is, so you have a measurement to judge, you know, a measuring stick. That radical opinion, I think, is off the reservation. I think it's way off the reservation. So, I think the kid became a victim of his own brilliance. Both articles, I think that they became victims of their own brilliance. You know, I kind of like the idea. I mean, it's like President's Day. We used to have Lincoln Day. We used to have Washington Day. You know, and they made it all one day. Said, oh, we're just going to make it all one day. It's the same kind of logic. I can see where the kid's going. Minority Month. Whatever your minority is, whatever your position is, here it is. And you can call it whatever because it's Minority Month. You know, it's like, well, there you go. Anybody born in February, you're born in Minority Month. It's like, oh, dear God, here we go. Just some creative ideas, I guess. Other thing, let's bounce this around a little bit for this coming week. Since the Mexico problem is solved and they've motivated the Mexican army, the next part of this treacherous game of diplomacy is now, what do we do with all those squadrons of B-52s and fighters and ships that just happen to found themselves over in the Mediterranean, just hanging around looking for something to do? I wouldn't say they have itchy trigger fingers, but they're looking for something to do. It is very disappointing when you're sitting around looking for something to do. I don't know what to tell you. It's aggravating. You know, you got to have something to do. And there's quiet throughout Southwest Asia. In fact, the Arab League is actually trying to solve this Iranian problem before anybody gets involved in it. Always look for a diversion. And look for the reason why there is a diversion. So here you go. A couple of suicides in the past week. Past Clintonistas. There were Clintonistas committing suicide. Not that they're dying of old age. They're committing suicide. And I have a suspicion that we're going to see more of them. And I have a suspicion that as these individuals get suicided, the path to finding out this treachery that took place, and that's what I'm calling it now, internal treachery, because nobody's that stupid. You can't make me believe they're that stupid. You can't convince me that they're that stupid, because if they are that stupid and they're the top of what we have for government employees, we have to clean house. Got to be a lot of firings, because if that is the level of intelligence we have leading these organizations, and they're making the calls for these things, and this is what we got problems. So look for some more changes in the prior Clinton administration and the prior Obama administration as loose ends are tied up. That's a good TV show thing, like Mission Impossible. They're tying up loose ends. So you're going to see suicides, and you're going to see, you know, killings, I guess, car accidents. And it's going to be strangely suspicious that they've all happened here in the next few months prior to investigations coming down. Looking shaky. Cold coffee. All right. We come back from the break, a little bit of shakiness there. Oops, I yarded again. Twin's going to be out there pumping one out. And right after that, actually, I think we're going to, for everybody listening live, and we go directly to the roundtable. Roundtable this week is taped because we did it at the university. So, and it's 20 minutes long. So we're going to use that as our live section. So we come back from break, we'll have our live section going, and keep in mind, you'll hear the university students, you'll hear the opinions, and you're going to hear some funny stuff, especially the kid that's going to be talking about Minority Month. See you after the break.